Imagine a world without rules. A world where the only law is the law of the jungle. Might makes right. This was the reality for our earliest ancestors. For thousands of years, survival was the only game in town. Find food, avoid becoming food, and live to see another sunrise. But what happened when survival was no longer the only goal? When our ancestors started to form larger groups, something new and powerful was needed. Justice became the new fire. Welcome back to our journey through human history. Today, we're exploring a monumental shift in our evolution, not of body, but of mind and society. We re-digging into the Stone Age to uncover the moment we stopped just surviving and started living together. The moment right and wrong were born. Let's set the scene. Picture a small, nomadic group of early humans. Life is tough, but simple. The primary concerns are hunting a mammoth or gathering enough berries. In a small family unit, disputes are personal and often resolved quickly. If Og takes Og's sharpened rock, Og might just take it back, maybe with a grunt and a shove. The group is too small and too dependent on each other for major conflicts to fester. Cooperation is baked into their daily existence because a lone human is a vulnerable human. But as our ancestors grew more successful, their communities expanded. Small family bands merged, forming larger tribes. Suddenly, you weren't just living with your immediate kin. You were living with dozens, even hundreds of people. And with more people came more problems. This wasn't a friendly village gathering. It was a powder keg of competing desires and personalities. This is our first step, observation. The leaders, the elders, the wise ones of the tribe, they started to see patterns. Grack's carefully stored winter nuts have vanished, and everyone is eyeing a suspiciously well-fed Zog. Two hunters, Burrow and Kale, both claim they delivered the killing blow to the giant deer. And now they're at each other's throats over who gets the prized antlers. A promise to share a tool is broken, leading to a hunt failing. And now several families will go hungry. These weren't just squabbles anymore. Theft, violence, broken promises, and betrayal began to ripple through the community, disrupting the delicate harmony. The trust that held the tribe together started to fray. A group that spends all its time fighting internally can't effectively hunt, can't defend against predators, and can't plan for the future. The chaos threatened the very survival of the group, the very advantage they had gained by coming together in the first place. The elders observed that individual selfishness could doom the entire collective. Something had to be done. This brings us to step 2. Experimentation. Humans are incredible innovators. We didn't just invent stone tools. We invented social tools. Faced with this new threat of internal chaos, the tribes began to experiment with solutions. How do you stop Zog from stealing nuts? How do you resolve the dispute between Burrow and Kale without bloodshed? Their first attempts were likely raw and visceral. The strongest warrior in the tribe might step in and simply declare a winner, his authority backed by the threat of his club. Or perhaps the entire tribe would gather. The accused would be brought before the group, and a collective judgment would be shouted out. The punishment could be immediate and severe. A public shaming, a painful blow, or worse, exile. Being cast out from the tribe was often a death sentence. These early forms of justice were essentially group-enforced survival instincts. The goal wasn't necessarily to be fair in the modern sense. It was to stop the disruptive behavior fast. A thief might have his hand struck with a rock, not just to punish him, but as a stark warning to everyone else. See what happens. Don't do it. These were public, dramatic, and aimed at creating fear. For a while, this might have worked. The fear of punishment could keep some of the worst behaviors in check. But this led to a new and unexpected problem, which brings us to step 3. Realization and failure. A system based purely on fear and brute force is unstable. What happens when the strongest warrior is the one causing the problem? Who judges the judge? What if a popular member of the tribe is accused, and their friends refuse to accept the group's punishment? The tribes began to realize that fear was a double-edged sword. It could prevent some crimes, but it also created resentment, division, and an atmosphere of paranoia. A system where the loudest or strongest person always wins isn't justice. It's just tyranny with a different name. If a punishment felt undeserved or disproportionate, it didn't solve the conflict. It just planted the seeds for a future, more bitter one. Imagine a scenario. A young, inexperienced hunter accidentally ruins a trap set by a senior hunter. In a fear-based system, he might be severely punished for wasting resources, but the tribe would lose a potential future provider, and his family would harbor deep resentment. The elders would see this and realize that this approach was breaking the tribe apart from the inside. Justice couldn't just be about stopping bad behavior. It had to be about restoring balance. It had to feel right, not just to the powerful, but to everyone. This crucial realization was a turning point. They understood that for the group to truly thrive, the system had to be perceived as balanced and impartial. Justice wasn't just a club. It had to be a scale. And so, we arrive at step 4. Mastery and the result. The tribes began to refine their social experiments. This is where we see the true birth of ethics and order. Instead of relying on the whim of a single strongman, they started to develop shared, unwritten laws. Think of them as the first terms and conditions of civilization. These laws would have been simple principles passed down through oral tradition. For example, a kill belongs to the hunter whose spear struck the heart, or food from a collective hunt must be shared among all families, or a tool borrowed must be returned in the same condition. To enforce these, they developed more sophisticated processes. A council of elders, respected for their wisdom and experience rather than just their strength, might be formed to hear disputes. They wouldn't just listen to the accuser. They would listen to the accused. They would call upon witnesses. They were, in essence, the first judges and juries. The punishments also evolved. Instead of just violence or exile, they developed the concept of restitution. If you stole someone's food, you might be required to forage for them for a week. If you broke someone's tool, you had to make them a new, better one. This was a revolutionary idea. It wasn't about inflicting pain. It was about making things right, about restoring the harmony that had been broken. This new system, based on shared principles, deliberation, and restorative justice, was a game-changer. It created a predictable and stable social environment. People knew the rules. They knew what was expected of them, and what would happen if they crossed the line. This newfound security allowed for even greater cooperation. Tribes could plan larger projects, develop more specialized skills, and build more permanent settlements. The social fabric became stronger, more resilient, and capable of supporting a much more complex society. This was the birth of order, the blueprint for all future legal systems. Which brings us to our final moral, the punchline of this grand human experiment. Justice turned survival into civilization. The fire kept our ancestors warm, but it was justice that allowed them to build a home around it. The instinct to survive is something we share with every other animal on this planet, but the instinct to create fairness, to build a system of right and wrong that applies to everyone, that is uniquely, profoundly human. It was the moment we gained a collective conscience. The leap from chaotic survival to ordered society wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, difficult, and brilliant innovation forged in the crucible of early human communities. It was the understanding that we are stronger together, but only if we agree on how to be together. But of course, as society got more complex, these oral traditions weren't enough. How do you ensure a rule is remembered correctly from one generation to the next? How do you keep track of judgments and agreements? Rules need recording, and that leads us to our next great discovery, the first symbols of law and the birth of record-keeping. Join us next time as we decipher the ancient markings that laid the foundation for all written law. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey back in time. If you found this story of our shared past fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more explorations into the discoveries that made us who we are. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you won't miss our next episode. See you then.